Hi, I'm Dede Wilson, and I'm going to show you how to make a dark chocolate ganache. Of all the recipes that I make, this is the most versatile. A ganache, once it's chilled, can be rolled into the centers for truffles. When it's liquid, you can pour it over ice cream for a simple sauce. You can glaze a cake. You can use it as a chocolate fondue when it's warm. So you'll find many, many uses for it. Of course, you could make it with white or milk chocolate as well, but a dark chocolate ganache is one of those basics that you should master. Now, what's important to understand is that at its most basic, it's made from two ingredients, chocolate and cream. So we really have to pay attention to those ingredients because with only two parts making up the whole, the quality of each one is of prime importance. Now the cream, in my recipes, I call for heavy whipping cream. That's how you'll most often see it in my books and my recipes. This is the highest butterfat cream that's typically found in the supermarket. Now it does get a little complicated because sometimes when you go to the supermarket, you might see a container that just says heavy cream, or it might say whipping cream, or it might say heavy whipping cream. Now, either of those could work for this recipe. They might have a 1 or 2% difference in the butter fat, which could alter it slightly, the texture slightly, but they will work. But if you can find something that says heavy whipping cream, go for that. Now, my recipe uses 1 1/4 cups of heavy cream and 12 ounces of chocolate. So let's talk about the chocolate. For this ganache, I like to use a 55% semi-sweet chocolate. This is my favorite go-to semi-sweet. It's Valrhona Equatorial 55%. Now I know this is a big bag. This is a 3-kilogram bag, but if you use a lot of chocolate, it actually is less expensive to buy large quantities like this. Now this recipe, this ganache, is formulated for a 55 to 60% chocolate. So you want to check the label and use a chocolate with that cocoa mass percentage. If you use a chocolate with a higher cocoa mass percentage, this ganache won't work. It's going to break. So pay attention to that. So this recipe calls for 12 ounces. So I'm going to measure that out here. We do need a scale. And these pieces, these are actually wonderful for melting. This is going to melt quite smoothly. You don't want to try and melt down chocolate chips for this. Those are not formulated for melting. That's why they keep their shape so nicely in chocolate chips. Let's see, one less, 12 ounces, our chocolate's ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my cream. And we're just going to bring this to a boil, just to a boil. It's just come to a boil, so I am going to turn this off. Now, this is an induction cooktop, so when I turn it off, the burner goes cool right away. You might want to take your pot off the burner because we're going to add the chocolate to the hot cream, but you don't want the chocolate to cook. So if you have induction, you can leave it on the burner. Otherwise, take it off the burner, cover it, and now we're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes, and the residual heat is going to melt our chocolate beautifully. After about 5 minutes, the residual heat will have melted the chocolate. And there's no chance of the chocolate burning because we don't actually have the burner on. Take a whisk. Now come look at this. You start whisking it together and the chocolate is all melted, the cream is warm. I'm just going to keep whisking it together here until we have a smooth chocolate ganache. Just comes together before your eyes. Look at that. Beautiful. Now you want to whisk it enough so that it is smooth, but you don't want to over whisk it. We're not trying to add air. We're trying to keep it really dense and chocolatey and velvety from that heavy cream. There we go. So now look at this. This is velvety and liquid, and if I were going to glaze a cake, this would be perfect. If I wanted to use this as chocolate fondue, I would put it right into a fondue pot at this point in time. But let me show you what happens if you chill it. Now, this was in my refrigerator. I actually always have chocolate ganache in the refrigerator. You have to store it in the fridge, of course, because there's a lot of heavy cream in there. Now, I'll show you how firm it gets. You see that? It gets really, really firm. And then with a small 1-inch size measuring scoop, you can go in here and you can measure out little balls. You could roll these between your hands. This could be the center of a really simple truffle that then you would roll in cocoa or nuts or whatever. You could put in little fluted paper cups and you would be good to go. But what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact this is warm and creamy and so chocolatey. Look at this as the simplest, most amazing chocolate sauce. Just perfect. Who is going to turn that down? And if you have this in the fridge, you could just microwave it until it liquefies again, and you'll have an instant dessert. So that's how you make a dark chocolate ganache. Again, as I said, this has got to be my favorite building block of all the things in my arsenal. It really pays to get good chocolate, good cream, follow the proportions. You put the chocolate in the hot cream, take it off the heat, you'll never burn the chocolate, and you'll have ganache you can just keep in the fridge. And one other thing I like to do, keep it in the refrigerator. You can scoop out a bunch of this, a little bit of this, put it in a mug, top it off with some milk, put it in the microwave, whisk it together, and you have instant hot chocolate, the best hot chocolate you've ever had. Thanks for joining me, and check out some other videos at dedewilson.com.